You're listening to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. The show that gives pastors and church leaders the clarity they need to protect their people, property, and ministry.
Welcome back to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. I'm your host, Ron Wadley with Insurance for Texans. We help church leaders protect their people and property with wisdom and clarity. Today's episode answers a question I hear all the time from pastors, deacons, and finance committees across the state. What are the actual church liability requirements in Texas? And the honest answer usually surprises people. Texas does not legally require a church to carry liability insurance to operate. There's no state agency checking your policy, no permit that gets revoked if you don't have it. You can technically open your doors every Sunday with zero liability coverage. But here's the part that matters. Just because something isn't required by law does not mean it's optional from a financial or stewardship standpoint. I've sat in countless meetings where someone brings up charitable immunity as the reason the church doesn't really need liability insurance. That idea usually floats around right after someone asks about a bounce house, a festival, or a youth event. And almost every time it's misunderstood. Charitable immunity does not stop lawsuits. It does not pay for attorneys. It does not protect you in cases of gross negligence. And most people don't realize this part. It often only applies if you already carry liability insurance in the first place. In other words, immunity doesn't replace insurance. It assumes it. If someone is injured on your property, or a parent claims negligence in a children's program, or a volunteer makes an allegation against the church, the legal process starts immediately. Long before a judge ever decides who's right, your church is paying attorneys, gathering records, responding to subpoenas, and managing public pressure. That alone can cost tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars. Without liability insurance, every dollar comes directly out of the church's operating account, building fund, or reserves. That's why I say this isn't about legal compliance. It's about whether your church can survive one accusation or one accident. Another major blind spot for Texas churches is sexual misconduct coverage. Many leaders assume general liability covers everything. It doesn't. Most standard general liability policies exclude abuse and molestation claims entirely unless there is a specific endorsement or separate coverage in place. If that coverage is missing, the insurance company will simply deny the claim and walk away, leaving the church to defend itself alone. We've seen churches do everything right from a moral standpoint and still face massive legal bills from unfounded allegations. Innocence doesn't stop legal costs. Only the right insurance does. Then there's the issue of leadership exposure. General liability protects the church entity, but it does not protect the personal assets of your elders, deacons, trustees, or board members. If someone claims financial mismanagement, poor oversight, or a failure to act, those leaders can be named personally. Directors and officers insurance exists specifically to protect them so they aren't risking their retirement or their home simply by serving the church. Counseling is another area that gets overlooked. When a pastor provides counseling, they're acting in a professional capacity. If someone later claims emotional harm or financial loss tied to that advice, a standard policy usually won't respond. Pastoral or professional liability coverage is what protects those conversations that happen behind closed doors. When you step back and look at it, the question isn't, what does Texas require? The real question is, what could realistically happen and who pays when it does? That's where true Texas church insurance comes in. We don't just sell policies. We discuss with you how your church actually operates. Who is your staff and what are their roles? We learn about your leadership structure and talk about specific risks, and then build liability coverage that makes sense for your church. Just the right amount of protection that you need to feel at peace. The worst time to find out what your liability policy doesn't cover is when an attorney's letter shows up at the church office. Don't try and figure it out on your own. Connect with our church insurance team at insurance4texans.com and increase your knowledge about church insurance in general by getting a free copy of our book, The Promise of Certainty, at thepromiseofcertainty.com. I'm Ron Wadley, and this has been Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. Until next time, remember, liability insurance isn't legally required, but it will sure help you to sleep better at night to know that your church is protected.
Thanks for listening to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance. Until next time, remember, insurance isn't just about policies. It's about safeguarding the mission God has called you to lead.